the Plan Commission meeting for March 7th to order at 4:02 p.m. I'm Shane Blazer, the chairman of the commission. Also present in council is Lee Tao and Susan Feith. Online, I saw we have Ben Goudreau, Ryan Austin. Is there anybody else online from the commission? Okay. We'll go to our first item is approval of the report from February 7th, 2022 Plan Commission meeting. What are your wishes?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Tal, second by Feith. Is there any further discussion on those minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 And anybody opposed? That motion carried. Number 2 is Vanderwall and Associates, Wisconsin Rapids Recovery and Redevelopment Plan update. Carrie or Kyle?
Thank you. The memo that was provided from Vanderwall is self-explanatory. They have not yet scheduled the Plan Commission and Council charrette, planning charrette. That's something on their to-do list. Hopefully over the next couple of weeks here, it's possible it could be scheduled for the end of March. So they continue at this point to reach out to stakeholders, gather data on the site, and continue to compile that data into a potential draft. And I think some of that information will be ready to be shared at that Common Council and Plan Commission charrette. And then along with that, around the same time, they're looking to also hold a public meeting to gather input from citizens.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Kyle? Okay. No action needed on that one. We can go on to item 3, which is Plan 22-0078, Central State Landscaping, Inc. Public hearing and action on a request for a conditional use permit to renovate the building into a mixed-use housing at 2934 State Highway 73 North, Parcel ID 3400836. Kyle, Gary?
Good evening, Mayor Blazer and members of the commission. So the next 2 items are from the same applicant from Central State Landscaping, and they relate to the same property, although the second one would be contingent on a proposed lot division. So the first item is a public hearing and action on a request for conditional use permit to renovate the existing building on the property into mixed-use housing. And these are some site photos. That is the building that is currently existing on the site, and that's just looking just at the open area on the property to the right of that building. So the request before you is for a conditional use permit to rehabilitate the existing building to create mixed-use housing. The applicant would like to create 1 3-bedroom apartment, and then the second space, ideally, he would like to convert to retail. If that did not work, that would be a 1-bedroom apartment. And then the third space would be the office that you see, the 226 square foot office, professional office. That would be a requirement to fall under the designation of mixed-use housing. And in the B2 zoning district, mixed-use housing does require conditional use permit. And again, the definition for that is 1 or more dwelling units located in a building, commonly on the second floor, however not required, that also houses a commercial land use such as a retail or professional office. So the delineated professional office would be required as a part of this. The retail space could be optional. It could exist, or it could be used as a 1-bedroom apartment. So after analysis, staff has determined that the site and structure are sufficient to accommodate the proposed mixed-use housing. It is suitable and consistent with the surrounding properties and with the area. The area is kind of a mix of commercially zoned residences, commercial properties, and then some industrial properties also. There are no issues with parking, circulation, or ingress or egress. The site is very sufficient to accommodate parking, ingress, and egress, and all the other requirements. So we are recommending approval subject to the suggested conditions of approval. Are there any questions for staff?
Thank you. How about we open the public hearing first and then take the question period after that from the commission. So I'll call 3 times. The first one, does anybody wish to speak in favor of the project? Secondly, does anybody wish to speak in favor of the project? And lastly, for a third time, does anybody wish to speak in favor of the project? Okay, is there anybody that wishes to speak against the project? And for a second time, does anybody wish to speak against the project? And lastly, would anybody like to speak against the project? Okay, we can close the public hearing at 4:08 PM. Is there any questions or comments or action from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Go ahead.
The question, I guess, is to Kyle with regard to staff recommendation number 5, in which you request a 1-year review on the conditional use, which is a requirement or a condition that I've not seen before, and I just wondered if you could explain that a little bit more in detail.
Yeah, so that condition actually is with the next item, item 5. For this mixed-use housing, it's not a condition. So I can either answer the question now or wait till we discuss
you.
5. Okay. Chairperson, would you like me to answer it or wait till we address item 5?
Well, I might as well answer it now.
Okay. So with item 5, it's a little bit more unique because it's ultimately a vacant parcel. And right now, the lot is not split. So if for example, both conditional use permits are approved, you have the mixed-use housing as well as a landscape use, you could then, without a lot split, you could have, right, storage of exterior equipment and materials on the same property that housing is occurring. And I think from a separation standpoint, we need to ensure that the parcel is separated so that there are separate standards in terms of, setbacks and things of that nature that a landscaping use, I think, would be applicable when comparing it to mixed-use housing. So we've added that as a condition, I believe, in the next one. And there really isn't a time frame for that. So we just want to make sure that the landscape use would not start occurring until such point that the lot is split. And to do that, I think it makes sense to put then a year review on the conditional use permit where you kind of as a reminder to us, and then we could bring it back to this body and say, the lot's been split, it's been, a building's been created, and we'd recommend that, right, we remove this condition, but keep the original conditions, and then from that point forward, it would operate essentially without any sort of review period. Yep.
Are there any other questions regarding item 3? Hearing none, what are your wishes? If you're online on Zoom and you want to get my attention, please just call out.
I'll move to approve, subject to staff conditions, or recommendations, sorry.
I'll second Mr. Austin's
Thank you.
motion.
Motion by Austin, second by Goudreau to approve the request along with the conditions outlined. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? That motion carries. We'll move on to item 4, which is Plan 22-0079, Central State Landscaping, public hearing and action on a request for a conditional use permit to operate a landscaping business at 2934 State Highway 73 North, parcel ID 3400836.
Yes, so this item before you would be then the resulting vacant lot that would be located to the southeast of the lot that we were referencing earlier. So the applicant has been operating a successful landscape business in the town of Saratoga for several years. He's looking at a location more to the western part of the city of Wisconsin Rapids to make it easier to get materials and equipment to projects that he has going on that are located more west of the city. Upon conditional use permit approval, they would like to subdivide this lot into 2 lots to construct a building that would include a 24 by 24-foot office and a 28 by 24-foot shop on the vacant lot to operate a second location for this landscape business. The proposed use is in keeping with the larger planning vision for the area. The landscape business is consistent with the array of uses in the area. Again, commercially zoned residences, commercial properties, and industrial properties. It's under, after staff review, we also feel the site is situated on a larger transportation corridor, which would be well suited to the vehicular traffic that would likely be accessing the site. So we are recommending approval with the suggested conditions.
Thank you. We'll hold a public hearing first, and then we'll take questions or discussion after the fact. So at 4:14, we can open up the public hearing. Does anybody wish to speak in favor of the request? For a second time, does anybody wish to speak in favor of the request? And lastly, does anybody wish to speak in favor of the request? Okay, is there anybody that wishes to speak against the request? And for a second time, does anybody wish to speak against the request? And for a third and final time, does anybody wish to speak against the request? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing at 4:14 p.m. and be open for questions from the commissioners, if anybody has any.
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Austin.
So just looking at Exhibit A, it does detail a potential office and a shop. Am I to assume they're gonna run the business out of the apartment building first, and then that is a potential add-on, or is that office and shop happening in concert with this?
Todd, would you like to step up and clarify that? And I'm going to make sure you're
So the intention is to do the small office first to see, and then it's kind of just up in there. I talked with Carrie and Kyle about this, and we just put it as a proposed thing. So, I mean, maybe 5 years down the road before we'd actually even be looking at, you know, putting up a building there. It could be 1 year. It just kind of all depends upon how responsive it is. So I guess at this time, I didn't really sit down and figure out if that office space would stay open and we'd continue operating, or there is a possibility. So the shop part of it, I do know that if we did do the shop part of it, that would be for the landscape business. It could more so be the office space. We could keep it under the B2 code and rent it out to other people. So we didn't really come up with an exact decision on exactly what we're going to do right now. So.
Did that answer?
Thank you. I want to say it's encouraging to see, you know, potential development at this property. It's sat kind of vacant for some time now. Obviously, it was a daycare previously, and it's good to see somebody's interested in this property.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that, and we'll have an extensive amount of money to, you know, give it a facelift and pull the permits for remodeling the inside to put it so it's not an eyesore to the community. So.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? Seeing none, what are your wishes?
I'll make a motion for approval.
So we have a motion
I'll
by
second.
Goudreau and seconded by Austin. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anybody oppose? Motion carries. Congratulations. We're going to move on to item 5, which is Plan 22-0063, Neiman's Service, Inc. Public hearing and action on request for an amendment to Chapter 11 zoning code of the city's municipal code to define towing business and place it within the zoning district. Here?
Yes, so the next item was brought forward by Neiman Service Incorporated. They are an existing towing business in the city. And they are looking at the possibility of purchasing an adjacent property. And when we began talking with them, we realized that our code really failed to adequately define towing. So it was difficult for us to make any kind of interpretation with regard to the towing business. So in looking at codes and a lot of other codes and kind of, performing the analysis to see where this would best fit within our zoning code, a lot of other codes break up auto repair into minor and major auto repair. That's very common. And ours does also. The way it does that is there's a vehicle service shop description, which is more for, if you're bringing your car in for a quick oil change or a car wash or something like that, you're bringing your car in and leaving within, an hour or so. And then we also have a vehicle repair shop description, which is more of a, heavy kind of vehicle repair. We include transmission repair, body work and painting, vehicle upholstery, engine repair and overhauls, and similar activities. And the understanding here is that maybe a vehicle would be left for, a couple days at a time, and maybe they're working on various cars, in different kind of time increments. So the way these uses are broken down on our land use matrix is the more minor one, the vehicle service shop, is a permitted use in the B2 zoning district. The vehicle repair shop is a conditionally permitted use in the B2 zoning district. And then we also included vehicle storage yard, which is a separate type of designation. That is conditionally permitted in the M1 and the M2 and more the industrial type zoning districts. So in looking at this, after staff review, we didn't feel that, we felt that towing was quite consistent with that more major repair designation, which is the vehicle repair shop description. So we think this could be defined by just including towing when those typical services are described. So we would have typical services include transmission repair, body work and painting, towing, vehicle upholstery, et cetera. And there are suggested standards within that not more than 15 vehicles would be stored at any given time, which we also feel like would address some of the possible kinds of issues that could arise with the towing business. And in addition, with that conditional use permit designations, it's something where the Planning Commission would have the opportunity to review it in terms of screening, storage, some of the other standards that we may want to apply when this use is before you. So the suggestion is to include towing in that vehicle repair shop description.
Thank you. Thank you, Carrie. We can take the public hearing first, which at 4:20, let's open that public hearing. I'll call 3 times if anybody wishes to speak against the amendment to Chapter 11. For a second time, does anybody wish to speak against the amendment? For a third and final time, does anybody wish to speak against the amendment? I'll call 3 times. Does anybody wish to speak in favor of the amendment to Chapter 11 zoning code? For a second time, does anybody wish to speak in favor? And for a final time, does anybody wish to speak in favor of the amendment? Seeing or hearing none, we can close the public hearing at 4:21 p.m. and take questions and comments from, go ahead.
I see we have an unidentified number on Zoom. I'm wondering if the applicant is present on Zoom or calling in.
Chris and Amber Neiman are here.
Great, thank you for confirming. I'm assuming you're on number ending in 8877?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. So the applicant is available if the commission has questions for them.
Thank you. Go ahead, Susan.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor, and that has to do more with the idea of, well, I have 2 questions, actually. The first one having to do with the fact that Neiman, I would assume, was grandfathered in its use of the property as it happens to be right now. Did something precipitate the requirement for them to make application for this?
So they are a non-conforming use. I've identified their primary use as a vehicle storage yard because we do not define towing, and right now, vehicle repair shop does not fit the definition either because they do not repair vehicles on site. So they have been identified as a vehicle storage yard, and that's non-conforming within the B2 district. However, again, they've made the request to define towing, and we've kind of concurred that I do feel as though there are well-run towing establishments that do not really vary in appearance different than an auto repair shop. You know, they may keep an office on site for the public and patrons to utilize, some parking stalls for those patrons, and then a storage or garage for their equipment, and then I know some towing facilities have then an off-site storage yard where they keep the impounded vehicles. So to us, I think it's appropriate to define it and permit it very similar to a vehicle repair shop that arguably could be operating worse, that could, you know, actually have repaired vehicles on site waiting to be repaired. And so I think it is fitting in that aspect, aside from Neiman's interest to expand to define towing, because right now it's not clear within the zoning code.
Okay, well, that wasn't exactly my question, and it was rather, were they put in a position where they wanted to or were required to request this change in status? Because I would have expected that they would have been grandfathered. Is it because they're
So their current,
intending to
their current
expand?
use, they are currently grandfathered and they can continue to operate. And I'll let Chris and Amber provide more information as to, you know, what they're willing to share with any future intention.
So I guess basically, yes, we are grandfathered in to operate under our current circumstances, but we wish to expand our building, and we were, I guess, under the understanding that we could not do that as we currently sit. So we wish to expand our building. We just kind of wanted to make things, I guess, a little bit more cut and dry as far as how our business operates, and be within, you know, that conditional use in the B2 district.
Thank you for that explanation.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Susan. Chris or Amber, this is Shane Blazer. So do you have any questions or concerns about how you're being placed in the zoning code, or any restrictions that this might place on you, or are you fully in support of it?
We're fully in support of it. You know, the way that it was written and brought up. I mean, I think that will work great for us.
Thank you very much. I just don't want to make sure we weren't maybe further hindering or restricting you at all.
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, great. Does anybody else have any questions for anybody? Okay, seeing none, I'll make a motion that we approve the amendment to Chapter 11 zoning code to define towing business and place it within which district?
Within the vehicle repair shop description.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Susan beat you on that one, so she'll get the second. Thank you, though, Mr. Goodrow. Seeing any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 And does anybody oppose? Thank you. That motion carries. And we are on to item number 6. What are your wishes?
Motion to adjourn?
We have a
Move to
motion,
adjourn.
we have a motion by Tao,
Second.
and a second by, was that Austin?
Yes, it was.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
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 And anybody oppose? That motion carried. Thank you very much.